Hello and welcome into this week's ARCA Menards Series Rewind show. I'm Garth Allen. This is Racing News Now. And I know, this one's a little bit late. It has been like pulling teeth to get the official info from this race. I literally had to go back through the replay to get your caution report and your lap leaders for this race because I still haven't seen that. So, had to go back and do that myself. It has taken a little bit. Had to go do the day job today, so I do apologize for this getting out so late. It wasn't supposed to be out this late, but that's kind of what happens when nothing gets sent from ARCA. So let's talk about this one. This one definitely had its ups and downs. The Portland 112 for the ARCA Menards Series West from the Portland International Raceway, the 1.98 mile road course in Portland, Oregon. This race, overall, really good. Now, it did get a little amateurish at times, but this is ARCA West. And as we've talked about before, I'd rather see amateurish stuff in ARCA West and let them get those kinks solved in ARCA West, ARCA East, even main ARCA before they move on up to trucks and Xfinity and that level. So it didn't really bother me so much. It comes with the territory. Overall, though, I thought we saw some great racing. This track put on a really good show. Honestly, I really think we should get this track on the Cup Series schedule, or at the very least, Xfinity and trucks. This track puts on some good racing, and I really think it deserves more on the NASCAR schedule than just being an ARCA West race. ARCA West puts on a good show there, but ARCA West puts on a good show everywhere. So I think this track deserves a shot at being higher in the NASCAR ladder. There's been talk about everybody wanting a race in the Pacific Northwest for years. We have a perfectly good track right here. Put it on the schedule, NASCAR. Hopefully that happens. Apparently we're going to see the Cup Series schedule for 2022 soon, so maybe that will be on the Cup schedule next year. I don't know. We're not here to talk about the Cup Series, though. We're here to talk about the ARCA Menards Series West and the great show that they put on in Portland. So let's look at your caution report for this race. 7 caution flags in this race. I don't know how many laps, again, because never got official info from this, so we have 7 caution flags. I don't know the lap number. It almost feels like, though, that we spent more time behind the pace car in this race than we did under green. So when we get to the lap leaders, don't be surprised if the pace car driver is top of the list. Notice that 3 of these cautions are for Todd Souza being stopped on track. Todd Souza completed, I think, 3 laps in this race, because every time he would come out, he wouldn't even hardly get a lap in, and the car would die. Now I get it, he's out there trying to make points because he's still in the championship battle. So you gotta try and do the best that you can, make up as many spots as possible, make as many points as possible. But by the time the third one rolled around at lap 42 and he stalled again, and he'd only completed 3 laps in this race, why are you still out there? Like, I get it. You want to do as much as possible, get as many points as possible, but at that point, when you've completed 3 laps and everybody else has completed at the very least like 50 laps, why? You're not going to gain anything at that point. All you're doing is causing needless cautions. So that was a little disappointing. 1 to 2 of these cautions really shouldn't have happened. After the first, or at the very least the second time, Todd Souza should have just not come back out on track, but nonetheless, that happened. We had 3 cautions from Todd Souza stopping on track. Lap 30, of course, is your break. Lap 13, the 7 of Takuma Koga and the 9 of Jake Drew get together through the quick right-left complex of turns 1 and 2. Takuma, I don't know if he missed the corner or exactly what happened there, but he came flying on the right side into the right rear of Jake Drew down into turn 1 and actually got up and rode the right rear a little bit on Jake Drew, and both of them spun around. Turn 1 to turn 2 had been very calamity corner all day. We'd seen a lot of action happen there. There was a lot of spins and wrecks that happened there that didn't cause cautions. So it wasn't surprising that something was happening in turn 1 and 2. This was probably the biggest thing we saw happen in turns 1 and 2 all day. Lap 33, Taylor Gray gets spun from the lead in turns 1 and 2. And lap 52, Bridget Burgess and Bobby Hillis get together coming off the final corner Burgess was able to get it back going. Bobby Hillis was not. He was stopped perpendicular in the track. That causes a caution to bring us to a one-lap shootout in overtime. Now, lap leaders on the day. 4 drivers spent time out front in this race. Again, did not get sent official numbers on this, so if these numbers are incorrect, I do apologize. This was from me looking back through the replay and figuring out who led laps where. By my calculations, Jake Drew led the most laps in this race. 29 laps led out front. Not a surprise. Topped both practice sessions, qualified on the pole by 1.2 seconds. Has an extensive road racing background. Not a surprise that Jake Drew would be that fast in this race. But it was not easy for him, as we saw in the caution report as he had his incident with Takuma Koga. Taylor Gray spent a lot of time out front in this race, 17 laps total. Cole Moore led 11 laps, and Jesse Love spent 1 circuit out front. As a quick reminder from the caution report, the Jake Drew Takuma Koga incident happened on lap 13. Jake Drew led 29 laps in this race. Simple math would tell you that that was not the end of Jake Drew's day, that he made it back to the front in this race. Now, the question is, did Jake Drew win this race? Well, the answer to that is a little bit tricky. Jake Drew crossed the line first, but on our one-lap shootout in overtime, chaos happened, as it had so many times on the day, in turns 1 and 2. Jake missed the corner a little bit. I've seen a lot of people saying that Taylor Gray shoved him into turn 1. There is no evidence from any camera angle that I saw that Taylor Gray actually made contact with the back bumper of Jake Drew going down into turn 1. In fact, the most definitive camera angle that I saw of a camera just inside the wall in turn 1, I never saw the 17 actually make contact with the 9 going into the corner. Jake just locked up the brakes and ends up straight lining turn 2 and taking a little bit of a shortcut. Chaos ensues behind him as everyone else is having issues getting through turns 1 and 2. Eric Nascimento also straight lines turns 1 and 2, comes through all of this in second. He and Jake Drew rocket off. They are the first 2 to cross the line. Taylor Gray ended up crossing the line in third. ARCA officials took probably a solid 5 to 10 minutes to review this finish, and I give them credit for reviewing this finish and not just throwing out a ruling within a couple of minutes after the finish and not really dissecting it and thinking about it. And the ruling that they came up with was to penalize Jake Drew and Eric Nascimento, as well as a couple other drivers that shortcutted turn 2 as well. This gave the win to Taylor Gray, his second career ARCA Menards Series West victory and his first of the 2021 season. Again, I saw a lot of people saying that Taylor Gray shoved Jake Drew into turn 1. And again, there's really no evidence to support that. From certain angles, it does look like he made contact, but when you look at other angles that give a clearer picture, the 17 never made contact with the 9, at least as far as I could tell from the clearer angles. As far as I could tell, there was no contact made between those 2 cars. Now, I may be wrong on that. I wasn't in the driver's seat of the 9. I wasn't in the driver's seat of the 17. I wasn't at the track. I didn't see it personally. All I know is the camera angles that were presented from TrackPass. Given that, a lot of people are saying that this ruling was wrong, that Jake Drew shouldn't have had this win stripped away from him. And while I will agree that Jake ran a phenomenal race and deserved this win, 100% fastest car on the track all day long, no doubt about it, was the car to beat, and in all likelihood should have won this race. This is something I have really complained about with NASCAR in recent years, is they don't enforce track limits on road courses. Instead of enforcing track limits, they'll just put these stupid little turtles in the inside of corners to where you get drivers taking flight like we did at the Indy Road Course. That's not the solution. Enforcing track limits is the solution. Whether you want to hear that or not, that is the solution, and that is what should be done. That is what every other series that runs on road courses does. They enforce track limits instead of sticking these stupid little turtles inside the corner. ARCA, to their credit, and if you've been around, you know that I am critical of ARCA when I feel that they deserve it. I am not critical of ARCA in this situation. ARCA made the right call here with penalizing Jake Drew, penalizing Eric Nascimento, And they also penalized Cole Moore and Rod Nealand for shortcutting turn 2 as well. ARCA made the right call here. Enforce track limits. That's what you have to do on road courses, whether NASCAR wants to believe it or not. Whether NASCAR fans want to believe it or not. That's how you have to do it on a road course. Instead of sticking little turtles everywhere, enforce track limits. ARCA, I'll give you a little golf clap here. Kudos. This is exactly how it should be done. NASCAR honestly needs to take notes from ARCA right now because ARCA just did this right. Whether Jake Drew deserved this win or not, from his performance on the track, he did shortcut turn 2. Had he backed off and given a spot back to counteract shortcutting turn 2, then we'd be in a different situation here and there might be a debate for this. But he did not. He kept going, put the foot to the floor, and went to the checkered flag. And granted, if I were in his situation, I probably would have done the same thing. If I had locked up the brakes and had no choice but to straight line turn 2, and it was the last lap, I'm probably not giving that spot back either. I'm going to make ARCA make that call. I do not blame him for that one bit. I'm not going to give that spot back and take the chance that I can't get it back within the lap. Jake Drew, in this situation, once he was committed to shortcutting turn 2, did the right thing. In no circumstance as a driver are you going to sit there and go, oh, it's the last lap, I'm going to give up a spot willingly. You take your chance, you go to the checkered flag, you take the checkered flag, and you got to hope ARCA doesn't make that decision. And if they do, make them make that decision. Don't make that decision for them by giving the spot back and not being able to take it. Honestly, all around, I think everybody did the right thing here. It is very unfortunate for Jake Drew, but in the end, given what happened in turn 2, this was the logical outcome. So let's look at your official results from this race, as they're changed a bit from how everybody crossed the line. Taylor Gray, of course, is your winner. PJ Pedroncelli comes home with a career best finish in the second position. Great job by PJ Pedroncelli. Very fast all day long. Not sure he had anything for Jake Drew, but at different points might have been the second fastest car on the track. Great run for Jesse Love to extend his points lead. Joey East came home in the fourth position, and Takuma Koga, career best, first career top 5 finish for Takuma Koga. Congratulations to Takuma Koga on that one. Great result for him in Portland. Rest of your top 10, career best finish for Tim Spurgeon in 6th, Trevor Huddleston 7th, Stafford Smith in 8th, also a career best for Paul Pedroncelli in 9th, PJ Pedroncelli's father, great run for him as well, and Jake Drew landed in the 10th position after his penalty after crossing the line first. Final page 11 through 17th. Last 3 drivers here on the lead lap also received penalties for shortcutting turn 2. Eric Nascimento in 11th, Cole Moore in 12th, and Rod Nealand in 13th. Unfortunate finish for Dave Smith, who I believe got into a wreck on the last lap. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think the broadcast ever showed it, but he had a great run all day, top 5 most of the day. Could have come away with a really good finish here, and unfortunately was not able to finish it off. 14th for Dave Smith. Bobby Hillis, after getting the car righted, came home in 15th, 1 lap down. Bridget Burgess ended up 7 laps down after her tussle with Bobby Hillis. She was able to drive away, but then had fluid leaking from the car and unfortunately had to park it after that, after she was as high as, I think, 3rd at one point, maybe 4th. So at different points, really good run going for Bridget Burgess in this race, and unfortunately could not cap it off. And then only 3 laps completed in this race for Todd Souza. So that's your results from the Portland 112. Trying to work on a Taylor Gray interview. Not 100% sure if that's going to happen or not with the quick turnaround to Bristol on Thursday, but we'll try to get that in for you this week. Let's take a look at your ARCA West point standings following Portland's 6 races into the ARCA West season with 3 races remaining. And Jesse Love still leads the points now by 19 over Jake Drew. Could have been a very good points day for Jake Drew. Could have cut into that lead for Jesse Love. Because let's think about it. If he and Eric Nascimento hadn't gotten penalties, with Jesse Love finishing 3rd after the penalties, that would have made Jesse finish in 5th. If Jake had won, this would have been a pretty good points day for Jake Drew and really could have put him in a very good spot in the points going into the last 3 races. And unfortunately, now he, as well as everyone else, has a bit of a hole to dig out of compared to Jesse Love. PJ Pedroncelli, Cole Moore tied for 3rd, 20 points back. 23 back in 5th is Joey East. 29 back in 6th is Todd Souza. And your last realistic championship contender at this point is Trevor Huddleston in 7th, 32 points back. But even he is starting to get a bit out of the conversation, as is Todd Souza. Joey East is kind of flirting with it as well, but he, with a few good runs, could still get back into it in the last 3 races. Really, everybody else, if Jesse doesn't have any problems in the next 3 races, at this point, it's going to be hard for really anybody to get back into this title fight. Jesse Love so far is asserting himself as the championship favorite and seems on his way to going back-to-back in the ARCA Menards Series West as champion. We'll have to see how that plays out for the final 3 races, but that's your point standings following Portland, and I believe that'll do it for us today on this ARCA Rewind show. Like I said, hopefully we'll be able to get Taylor Gray on here in the next couple days. We'll see how that works out. iRacing coming up on Tuesday. Actually might have a driver this week. I know it's been a few weeks since we've had one. I do believe there might be a driver this week, so keep an eye out for that. Probably not someone you're expecting. It's not someone we've had on before. Still ironing out the details on that one. So it may or may not happen, but keep an eye out for that. Because if it does happen, I think it's going to be somebody you will be surprised by and you will enjoy having on iRacing. Get ready for that on Tuesday, hopefully, and that's about it. Bristol on Thursday. The plan is to be at Bristol. I say the plan is to be there. It's not 100% set in stone at the moment that I will be there, but at the moment, the plan is to be there. Don't be surprised if I'm not there, though, and we just end up doing a watch party on Thursday. I would really like to be there to give you coverage from Bristol on Thursday, but we'll have to see how that works out. It may or may not happen. So hopefully we will be, but I can't promise it at this point. I think that's going to about do it today. So thank you as always to our Patreon supporter, Regional Manager William Holmes. Thank you as always for your support. It really is greatly appreciated. If you would like to be a patron of RNN, the link is down below in the description. Patreon.com/RacingNewsNow. Not required by any means, but it really is appreciated when you want to support RNN in that way. But that is going to do it for today's ARCA Menards Series Rewind show. So at that, I'm Garth Allen for Racing News Now.